Hey guys, sorry I couldn't be here today, but we are going to talk about other kinds of proof today. So you guys have done flowchart proofs so far, and we are going to do two other kinds of proof today, and the first kind we're going to talk about is called a paragraph proof. So for a paragraph proof, basically what we're going to do is we're going to plan out our proof, and then we're going to write why we believe the triangles are congruent with words. So I'm going to start with my givens just like I would in a flowchart proof. I'm going to take my first given, SE is congruent to SU, and I am going to mark that on the diagram. So I'm going to mark segment SE congruent to segment SU. Then I'm going to take my second given, EO congruent to UO, and I'm going to mark that on the diagram. Make sure you use a different number of marks when you mark that EO is congruent to UO. And then for my third thing, I'm going to note that I have a shared side. That shared side is right here, so I'll mark that congruent to itself. So now that we have our diagram all marked, it's pretty clear that triangle ESO is congruent to triangle USO by side, side, side. So we are going to write a paragraph that just kind of says why. So to start, I'm going to write down my givens, that SE is congruent to SU, and that EO is congruent to UO, and these were given. So I'm just going to say SE is congruent to SU and EO is congruent to UO because they were given. And then from there, we found that SO is a shared side. So, therefore, triangle ESO is congruent to triangle USO by side, side, side. So once you write your paragraph proof, that's all you have to do. Basically, you're just justifying each piece as you go, and you're writing it in sentences instead of in a flowchart. So that's the first one. Now we're going to scroll down, and we are going to do the one on the bottom, another example. And we're going to do a different kind of proof for that next one. We're going to do a two-column proof. So for the two-column proof, the first thing we want to do just to help with the setup is we're going to draw two columns. So first I'm just going to note that we're doing a two-column proof. And then I'm going to draw two columns. I'm going to label one column with statements. And I'll label the other column reasons. So now I'm going to take my givens. My first given is EP bisects HL. So that means HL right here is being cut in half by EP. So I'm going to mark that on my diagram that HL has been cut in half. So the first statement that I'm going to write here is my given, EP bisects HL. And for the reason to go with that, I'm going to write given. Then, much like I would do in a flowchart proof, I'm going to follow that with the statement that comes from it. So I know, because EP bisects HL, that HE has to be congruent to EL, and that is the definition of a bisector. So I have one piece of information so far on my diagram. Now I will take my next given. My next given is HP is congruent to LP, and I will mark that on the diagram. HP is congruent to LP. I'm going to mark that with 2 marks. That is something I know directly. I'm going to put that right in as a statement. HP is congruent to LP. And then that I'm going to put as my reason because it is given. So the basic idea of the statements and the reasons works just like the flowchart proof. Anytime we have a given, we just put given as the reason. Whatever you would have put on the line in the flowchart proof, that's the reason in a 2-column proof. So I need a third thing here in order to prove that my 2 triangles are congruent. I notice that I have a shared side right there, EP. So I'm going to add as my next step that EP is congruent to EP. And I'm going to write as my reason, shared side. Now I am ready to say my triangles are congruent because I have shown I have 3 things that lead to congruence. So I'm going to write triangle HEP is congruent to triangle LEP because of side, side, side congruence. Now, I will note that this was one of my sides, this was one of my sides, and this was one of my sides, just to make it really clear to myself that, yep, I really did have all 3 sides listed in my proof. It's really easy to see in a flowchart proof where your triple boxes are that you have the 3 things. In a 2-column proof, it's not as clear sometimes, so it might be useful to just make note what were the things that led to your side, 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 and here they are. So I'm just making note of those 3 sides there. All right, so that's the basic idea behind a 2-column proof. Let's move on to another example on the next page. If I were here in class with you guys today, I would let you choose between a paragraph proof and a 2-column proof for the 3rd example. But since I am not here, I am going to choose the 2-column proof because that is more commonly liked among students. So we're doing a 2-column proof here. So when we start any 2-column proof, we draw our columns and we label one column S for statements and the other column R for reasons. If you want to write out the word statements and reasons, you can do that as well. So I'm beginning with my first given, which is that SO is parallel to FT. So here's SO, here's FT. So I'm going to draw arrows on those to show they are parallel. And when I have parallel lines, that encourages me to look for alternate interior angles or corresponding angles. So I see a Z right here on my triangle. This Z tells me that I have alternate interior angles. So I'm actually going to color in this Z here, and I'm going to label the angles trapped in between the Z as congruent. So that's 2 steps of my proof. First I have to write down that I had parallel lines, so SO was parallel to FT. That was given. And then I have to write down that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2 because they are alternate interior angles. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my second given. ST is parallel to FO. I'm going to use two sets of arrows on this one. ST is parallel to FO. And again, I'm going to look for either alternate interior angles or corresponding angles because I have parallel lines. Here I see that I have another Z. That Z shows me that I have alternate interior angles, and that my alternate interior angles are angles 3 and 4. So I will add that as a step in my proof. First I have to write down that I had the parallel lines. ST was parallel to FO, and that was given. And then I can write down that angle 3 is congruent to angle 4 because they were alternate interior angles. So at this point, I have two pairs of angles congruent in my triangles. But in order to prove my triangles are congruent, I need a third thing. So I hope that you're all sitting in the classroom right now thinking to yourself, shared side. I do have a shared side right here, SF. So my third thing is going to be that SF is congruent to SF. And that is a shared side. With these three things together, I'll note that I had a side here, an angle here, and an angle here. So I'm going to prove that the two triangles are congruent, and I'm going to prove the two triangles are congruent using angle, side, angle. When I go to write my triangle congruent statement, I get to pick whatever order I want for the first one. So I'm going to say STF. And then I have to be careful about how I write the second one. So I started with S. S in the first triangle is the angle with 2 marks on it. So when I go to write the second one, I'm going to start with F because in the other triangle, F is the one with 2 marks on it. So F will go first. Then in my first triangle, T had no marks, so T corresponds with O because O has no marks. And then lastly, in my first triangle here, F had 1 mark, so it corresponds with S in my second triangle. So now I've got the triangles are congruent, but that's not where I stop. You'll notice I'm trying to prove that ST is congruent to FO. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write that as my next step. ST equals FO. And I need to verify, are those corresponding? But if I look at my statements here, I will notice that they are indeed corresponding. ST and FO line up. If I look at my triangle up here, ST is right here, FO is right here. They correspond. So they are indeed congruent. I can throw congruent marks on there. And I can write CPCTC over here as my reason. So that is my third proof. So now you guys are going to do some practice, and you're going to do that practice in the form of your homework. So you're going to start your homework right now. You have the rest of the class to work on it. I do want to warn you, you guys have a concept test next class. And that concept test will be your second time testing triangle congruence and your first time testing triangle proofs. And you're going to get to choose what kind of proof you want to do. So you'll have a choice of flowchart, 2-column, or paragraph, whatever you prefer. All right, good luck, and I will see you guys all on Tuesday.